Boston College kicks off spring football, and for football nerds like myself, this is like Christmas morning.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all who are my everydayers who listen to Locked On Boston College every day. You are our MVP, and I want to appreciate each and every one of you. Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to turbotax.com today and get yourself matched up with an expert. On today's show, camp is open. We're going to talk about an upper-class running back who is back, and it's a big deal for Boston College football. We're going to look at one positional group that is thin and one that Bill O'Brien talked about being deep and that he's impressed with. So let's kick that off. So on Tuesday, Boston College opened their spring camp. And for many, this is a big deal. It's exciting because this is a active part of the football schedule again. No more just behind closed doors working out. We had Mike Sidley of Eagle Insider there, and he was texting me all throughout the day. There's a lot to talk about here. Now, obviously the biggest story going into camp for many people is always the quarterback. For Boston College, a team that has honestly, it's been years since they've had one quarterback consistently last through a season. The battle between Grayson James, the incumbent, and Dylan Lonergan, the transfer, Jacoby Robinson, the underclassman, and Shaker Rising, the freshman, is going to be something everyone's going to be talking about. Now, Grayson James, as I said on yesterday's episode, is my presumed starter for this year. And from all accounts, from Mike, from some of the other writers, he looked great out there. And according to Bill O'Brien, he saw him continue to impress and grow from the end of last year. And that's all you can ask for from your starter, is he continues to grow. He has some good passes. He looks good with his confidence. That's a big deal. The confidence piece now is where Grayson James should shine compared to the other quarterbacks that he's playing with. So what I love that the quarterback room finally feels like a quarterback room. For so many years at BC, it was the transfer and then a bunch of guys that you're just like fingers crossed, white knuckling, hoping that they're going to become something. You saw that with Phil Dracovic and, Anthony Brown and Dennis Grossell, all these guys. It was like those one guy and then some question marks. Now, to be fair, the last couple of years, it's been the backup that has jumped ahead, whether it was Emmett Moorhead or Grayson James. But this year, Bill O'Brien talked about the depth at quarterback. And I think this is a really important spot to look at. Because if you lose a Grayson James, remember, he got hurt last year. That Western Kentucky game that we all watched, and I remember saying to myself, if he's the backup and that's what we get, you better hope Thomas Castellanos stays healthy. But it was because he was hurt. He gets healthy at the end of the season, boom. You have a guy that can completely run Bill O'Brien and Will Lawing's offense. And that is exactly what you need. What I loved about what Bill O'Brien said on Tuesday is that he loves the depth at all his positions. In a moment, we'll talk about the one position he doesn't feel confident about. But you look at these positions that BC has, and it's just like every position, it's like 1 through 4. There's a bunch of guys that can play there. You look at, for instance, tight end. You have Ty Lockwood, Jeremiah Franklin. Jeremiah Franklin is your presumed starter. He should be because he's the guy that's been your guy for years. Ty Lockwood's there to push him. You bring in someone like Ryan Boltwood, who you didn't see last year. Maybe you have a a walk-on like Danny Edgehill or Brady Clough. You have all these different names there, and they're all Matt Reagan, of course, too. I forgot about Matt Reagan. You see at tight end that you have all this. You look at something like the offensive line. There's positional battles up and down, whether it's Eric Stoggerty, Ryan Mickow, Kevin Klein, um, Dwayne Alec, you name it. The guard and tackle positions, there's multiple guys that can step up and play. And that is what the crux of Bill O'Brien's earn it mentality is about. You can't just have one guy at each position because A, they may not work out, and B, you have no one to push them. Those are two major factors. So you need to have depth. And he's starting to feel that it's a complete 180 from last year where you now have depth all over the place and you start to feel like this is what you're starting to build and this is what you want your program to look like because you have guys that can step up. The mystery players that you're not thinking of are going to start to show up at practice and get onto those reports. That is so critical. Additionally, at practice, we also heard about the kicking game. And Luca Lombardo, who we did not see much of last year because he got hurt, only was kicking simulated kicks. I think it was, a mental thing, like getting him ready. He's not ready yet. My biggest factor for this kicking room, remember, there's going to be a bunch of new punters, as I said on yesterday's show, is that you have somebody that's ready to go by the summer. And I want to remind you, Seamus Florio from Yale, he's not there yet. But Andy Quinn, from my reporter, said he sounded like he's doing a great job. And that's what you want. Liam Connor is going to, he was also practicing punting. And Liam, I love you, buddy. But I hope you don't have to keep punting. I hope you can just focus on your kicking because it's not fair. How many good kickers were doing both? I mean, this guy did yeoman's work last year as the kicker, the place kicker and punter. Liam Connor is the GOAT with that. I mean, like, how else can you not be impressed with what he had to do? But you want your punting, you want your place kicking better. You got to have him do his own thing. So it's good to hear that Andy Quinn looked good. And so I love that this was the first practice. It sounded like it was very intense, which is what you want. There was only a few recruits there, but we're going to get more and more each week. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you about one position that they talked about that was still kind of thin. Is this something that we need to worry about? I'll explain which position this is and why I don't think it's that big of a deal in just a moment. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates as they progress so you can focus on your day. So an expert who will find every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Go to get an expert now at turbotax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates available in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at turbotax.com/guarantees. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I think I'm getting close to 1,000. I might even be over 1,000 episodes of Locked On BC. Can you imagine that? 1,000 episodes just talking about Boston College sports. If you're a BC graduate, you're a BC fan, you are in the right place. If you want some more of this, go back and check out our archives or check out Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, we're talking depth. Bill O'Brien talked about the depth of this team and how he felt at most positions that they were feeling pretty good. The one position that he said that was not as deep as he wanted to was inside linebacker. Now, there was a ton of injuries there, and many of them had to do with previous injuries. So Jalen Blackwell, I believe, is out. You had Owen McGowan, who's still out. Additionally, we found out today, Bam Crouch, who I talked about on yesterday's episode, had surgery this offseason, and he's out. And Kamori Dixon, we didn't get an update on why, but he's out. So that is a lot of depth. I hope you guys like your Bryce Steele because you're going to get a lot of it in the spring. That's okay for your underclassmen to get some reps, but should we be worried about the depth at inside linebacker? I say no, and here is why. These injuries were not sustained, and I've heard buzz that Blackwell was hurt at practice today. I can't confirm it because I wasn't there. We'll find more about that on Thursday when I can be there. But what I'm saying is you're looking at a bunch of injuries of guys coming back. Owen McGowan, he had I think it was a chest injury, like a muscle up in the chest. I forget which one it was, but he's out. That should be back in time for summer practice. So you mark him down right now as out. And when you're watching, like Tim Hayes, a preferred walk on, and not a knock on him. Hey, we had Joe Marinaro do a great job with it last year. Maybe he'll be the guy this year. But you watch him and you're going, why is, this? It's the reason is because Owen McGowan's not ready yet. The other piece that goes along with this is Bam Crouch. I don't think the sense, this is a vibe sense here, okay? When you're talking injuries at college sports, you either have a coach that will tell you everything or a coach that will tell you nothing. And I got to tell you, every BC coach that we've had so far has been obtuse for a reason. They don't want to tell you. But the vibes I got, my vibe check on Bill O'Brien when he talked about Bam Crouch's injury was that this was not an injury that's going to keep him out past the summer. He may miss all of spring. And he's an upperclassman. That's his prerogative. Honestly, I don't think that's that big of a deal. But I think, he'll be back and ready to go in the summer. So that is not a big deal. I have no idea what's going on with Kamori Dixon. He didn't play last year, but, injuries can happen at practice. Guys can blow their knees out. So I don't know what's going on there. My thought. Let's pretend here. Let's do a exercise in what the worst case scenario here. Let's pretend that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe AJ is wrong here, and Bam Crouch and Kamori Dixon are going to miss time. Maybe Bam Crouch's surgery takes 9 months. It's going to be a bit. What does Boston College do here? My answer is you guys are going to hate this. You're going to need to find a spot to get a transfer if this is the worst case scenario. And I don't think it will be. But if all those guys are out, you need to find somebody else. You need to be able to bring somebody in to fill that spot. Because I'm sure you're going to see guys like Griffin Collins this spring. Maybe Zachary Thomas in the fall. But you need to build depth. Maybe that's a transfer portal. But if these guys are all on track to come back in this fall and be able to play for BC, I'm not as worried about the depth here. I really am not. So that's my thoughts on inside linebacker. I think you have guys, you just got to make sure that they're healthy. Now, looking around the rest of the roster, some good news is that Jaden Skeet is back. Remember, he kind of disappeared, and some folks were like, oh my gosh, AJ, is he entering the transfer portal? No. He was just hurt. He is back. And speaking of all coming back, there's some player number changes. The biggest being Grayson James is no longer number 14. So if you see those old pictures, he's no longer number 14, which you know what? I'm kind of glad. How many good quarterbacks are number 14? But he went to number 3, which I can't think of good quarterbacks that are number 3. I was hoping for maybe go with the TB or 10, 11, or 12, but 9 and 10, I believe, are Razig, Shaker Razig, and Dylan Larnigan. And so he just did not have that chance. So that was I love I love number changes. I did not see any positional changes, but there's a bunch of number changes. Jordan McDonald, I believe, took Kai Robichaux's number 5. Jaden Skeet changed his number, and I forget what it is, but he's no longer number 6. There's a few. So that was interesting as well. Now, in our final segment, I want to talk to you about a player. We're talking injuries here that is back and one that could play a big role. I'll explain who that is and why you should be interested in this in just a moment. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef prepared, dietitian approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factory even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab and go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I get kids, I don't have time to plan out meals. Factor takes care of that. I recently tried their Protein Plus meals, and they were packed with flavor and kept me full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off and use code lockedoncollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code lockedoncollege50 off at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off to get 50% off free shipping on your first meal. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College. Practice begins again on Thursday, and you better be here on Locked On BC. But between now and then, check out Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade. I know the BC is not in the tournament, and it's depressing as hell. It's been since 2009, but I still love the tournament. You're all going to want your bracket news. Check out Locked On Basketball, College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's get into one player that came back. Now, if you've been following along last year, I went to a lot of practices, and one of the things I noticed was Alex Broom. He got hurt in spring, and I believe I want to say it was a knee, maybe it was ACL. I'm not sure exactly what his diagnosis was, because again, Boston College does not talk about injuries. They'll tell you that they're hurt, but you don't get details. But he was walking around with the knee brace and everything like that, wondering when he was going to come back. Honestly, I was not even sure he was going to be back for spring ball, but he's here, and he was actually playing and being pretty productive with the ones today. So that's great. Now, Alex Broom is a smaller running back. You got guys like Turbo Richard and Jordan McDonald. Both are bigger. Turbo is not huge. Jordan McDonald's bigger. But I have said all along, Alex Broom has a spot on this offense. I think for me, I put on my projection hat here. I see Alex Broom as a third down back. I look at Trayshawn Ward from last year when things were clicking, and it was mostly with Thomas Castellanos, to be frank, but he found a role. It was a lot of those passes to Trayshawn, and he made big deals out of him. I could see Alex Broom kind of doing the same thing. This is a smart kid. I want to say he's an engineering major from Tennessee. He's just been, he got slammed with the injuries. If he's healthy, this is a guy that, even though he's smaller, is built like a truck. And I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential here in the passing and running game. So to see that he is back is very encouraging. So I want to say that I'm looking forward to that. Now, let's wrap things up with just a little bit more talk, one more of final little take about BC football. And that was kind of Bill O'Brien talking about the spring game. Now, I'm not going to doubt a coach. Bill O'Brien said the reason he doesn't want to do the spring game is because he wants practice number 15. I guess. I don't I'm not sure I agree with him that that's the reason. From every other team that we've heard of, and he claims that his thoughts are different than other teams. So I'm not going to call him a lie. I'm not. But what I'm going to say is I think it's very clear that the spring practices are a spring game is off the table for BC because of NIL and the transfer portal. I have to imagine he does not want his players out there so that other teams can snipe them in the transfer portal. That was something that came up. He said it's because he wants an extra practice. I mean, I guess, but I'm not sure that I take that that's the full reason that he's picking that. So that's my last thought on there. Now, one last thing before we go. I have to say, there's like 30 new names at practice now, and I love it. There's like 14 freshmen and 11 transfers or 10 transfers. The best part of practice for me is that there could be the next Reed Harris that comes out of this. Remember, Reed Harris going into before Bill O'Brien was hired was I had to say from talking to Jeff Halfley, he liked him, but I don't think anyone perceived that we were going to get a guy at Boston College that was going to be as dominant a wide receiver as we got with Reed Harris that can make circus catches and be that big play wide receiver. He was a tight end up until probably June last year, and he exploded. Now there's all these new names that we're going to be talking about, whether it's Ty Lockwood or Dylan Lonergan or Anya Nwisi or Chuck Nato, all these transfers to go along with freshmen like Njide Sinkala or Ashton Cunningham, Shaker Rising. This adds new flavor to every practice because I truly believe that Bill O'Brien will find somebody on this roster that will shock you that's going to be a bigger deal. And it's someone probably we're not even thinking of because, again, Reed Harris was an afterthought compared to Jaron Bradley last year. We all thought Jaron Bradley, that transfer, was going to be the guy, and it ended up being Reed Harris. Where will this other name come from? We're going to have Mitch Wolf on later this week to talk about who his choice is. He has his own thought, and it's someone you may not think of. And I'll have my own thought about this. But that's what I love about camp. It's not to watch Lewis Bond, who we all know make good plays, or, you know, a defender like Amari Jackson, if he's healthy, to make plays himself. It's to see the guys that you don't expect, to see how they've developed, how they've come along. That is the key here. That is what is going to make Bill O'Brien's team click. Again, on tomorrow's show, we'll get into recruiting. We'll get into some more football news because we're in the middle of practice now. Thank you all who have locked on to BC and have either subscribed on YouTube or found us wherever you get your podcast. Someone texted me and said, "Hey, AJ, is it better if we hit you up on YouTube or on podcasts?" I got to say this. It's whatever makes you most comfortable. If you want to watch me sit here and talk and, hey guys, love seeing you, that's great. But if you just want to listen to me in the car, get me on a podcast app. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're locked here on Locked On BC and find me on YouTube or get your podcast. Get to that AJ Black 247 and come over to Eagle Insider. Right now, first month is $1. We're going to be at camp, either me or Mike every time. And we'll be talking about what's going on, what we see. I will have recruiting news. I'm talking to the staff constantly about who's going to be there. You can get $1 for your first month. Just try it out. See if you like it. If you want good BC news, check that out. Again, thank you all for following along. And I'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On BC, your team every day.